When we think about technology, when we think about our industry, a lot of terms come to mind, like next generation radio, long-term evolution, 100G optics, fiber to the home, etc. And when you take a look at the technologies out in the trade show area or in other venues like this, you see the latest in terms of applications and phones, and it's becoming a sense of style to be able to compare your applications and the latest downloads compared to others. But one of the things that you don't normally think about is how much energy you're using when you do this. If we take a look at the global network, if you will, and try to calculate the greenhouse gas emissions of that, it turns out that the network emits about 800 gigatons equivalent of carbon dioxide. That, in absolute terms, is very large. It represents about 50 million automobiles, or all of the automobiles on the road inside of the United States. Relatively speaking, it's fairly small. It's about 2%. But nevertheless, that's equivalent in scale to the airline industry. So when you think about it from an emissions perspective, or if you think about it from an OpEx perspective, energy tends to be somewhere around 5 to 40% of OpEx, depending on where in the world you live. Any one of these things means that energy is important, either to our planet, to our bottom line, or there's still 1 billion people not connected to the network in countries, and a lot of the reason for that is unreliable power. So 3 years ago, a group of visionaries came together and asked the question, what's the minimum amount of energy required to power the network? The absolute minimum. Quantum mechanics and all of the math and everything. It turns out that the fundamental limit for energy is a factor of 10,000 times smaller than today's network. 10,000 times. This means that if you could accomplish that, you could achieve a reduction equivalent to removing all of the cars on the road inside the United States. When you take a look at our industry, year over year, we reduce the emissions or improve our energy efficiency of the equipment by about 20% per year. 20%. Here we're talking about factors of 1,000 in capability. Now, of course, when you think about that, all the patent lawyers in the room start going, I want a piece of that. What is that magic technology that came out of there? And it turns out that it's no single technology. Otherwise, we probably would have found it already. It turns out that you have to think about the network as a whole. Thinking about it from wireless, from backhaul, from metro networks, from core switching, from core fiber optics. Each has a contribution. And as you start to address the major elements and reduce those, then of course the next one comes into play, and the next one, and the next one. So when you're faced with such a great opportunity, a factor of 10,000, but there's no single bullet, there's no research organization, even the famed Bell Laboratories doesn't cover all of the technologies necessary to do this. We, with a small group of industry leaders, created a consortium called GreenTouch. And if you're interested in GreenTouch, you can visit us on the web at greentouch.org. We also have a booth right next door that you can see some of the technologies. And over the next few minutes, I want to kind of introduce you to GreenTouch. So GreenTouch was formed after this really remarkable calculation, this factor of 10,000. And a bunch of industry leaders came together and said, you know what? This is so important. This is so important that we should just announce this, form a consortium, bring it together, and ask people to join. And when we did that, we decided to do it, and within 2 months, we had 14 founding members of GreenTouch, the industry leaders around the world. It's a global consortium, and people from around the world contribute to that. And we announced GreenTouch in London in front of 70 press, a bunch of cameras and whatnot. And at that point, the only thing we had was a calculation and a vision of achieving a factor of 1,000 improvement in energy efficiency in 5 years. That was it. There were no documents, there were no NDA agreements, there were no membership forms. It was just this concept. And we announced it, and the industry has forever changed. Even for you who are not members of GreenTouch, when you take a look at the research efforts from around the world, it's no longer thinking about improving the efficiency by a factor of 2 or 3 or 5. Now you start to see factors of 20, 50, 100. So it's already there. The effort is already there. But at that time, there was nothing but this idea. And the first question that was raised after we announced this was, this is fantastic, how can I join? And we had no idea. There were no paperwork, there was nothing. So for 5 months, this group of 14 companies and industry leaders solved the problem of what does it take to be a member of GreenTouch? Really agonizing about, is it just a participation? Should we sell mugs and t-shirts? Or is it really people coming together and solving these tough problems? And we decided it's going to be, because the goal is hard, it's actually going to be hard to be a member of GreenTouch. It's not just about showing up for member meetings and hanging out at cool things. It's about solving this problem together. And this is fundamental to our industry, because this technology, as you go ahead and try to solve it, is going to shape our industry for decades to come. So the intellectual property around this is very valuable. The ideas that come out of this is very valuable. Of course, the work is very valuable. So it should be hard and it should be challenging. After 5 months, we figured out how to do this. And since then, we've had 2 years working on this. We now have 57 members of GreenTouch from around the world, Asia, Europe, the United States. And it's about 2/3 of the organization is universities, from the top universities on the planet. And then the rest is industry representatives, like corporations, industrial labs, etc. We've also, since those early days, come up with 2 demos. Our first one was a wireless demo. Wireless is really the technology that limits the energy efficiency. And you can kind of think about it when you're downloading information, when you're using your phone, you occupy a fairly small space. But of course, the base station is far away and radiates a large area. So proportionally, the base station is using a lot of energy to just cover your area. So wireless was our first attempt, and you'll see it over there. It's called the large-scale antenna system. And what that does is it uses multiple antenna elements to really focus the beams, focus the energy on you, the user. And we've achieved a factor of 20 with that technology, but more importantly, we showed that it's possible to scale that indefinitely. You can achieve a factor of 1,000 by adding more and more antenna technologies. And that's a fundamental result. Second thing that we did just this year, a few months ago, was we thought about the PON technologies, fiber to the home and the access technologies. And with that, at 10 gigabits per second, we came up with a new MAC layer, and you can see it next door, that achieves a factor of 100 reduction in power by simply thinking about the bits differently and the order of the bits differently. So wireless, coupled with fiber optic backhaul, together we can start to achieve real significant gains in energy and energy efficiency. This is a remarkable result, and more technology demonstrations will be coming down the road as we continue to develop these technologies in the labs, in the working groups, and in the minds of our members. But I want to leave you with this thought. As we start to come together and start to use this technology to, of course, improve our own footprint, improve our own operational efficiency, we can also start to couple with other industries that can actually use ICT to make themselves more efficient. And there was a recent study done a few years ago by the Global Energy Sustainability Initiative, GESI, which showed that if you used network technologies in smart grids, smart buildings, smart manufacturing, smart transportation, we could achieve a factor of, 15% overall global reductions in greenhouse gases by using the network to make these other industries more efficient as well. So as we start to bring together these technologies, making the network efficient, then leveraging that to make other industries more efficient, we can have real substantial gains in terms of sustainability around the world. The second thing that's important is as we start to think about these things in a new way, achieving this factor of 1,000 in efficiency, it means that the power requirements obviously come down significantly, and we can start to think about alternative energy sources in a real way. It's hard to think about these things when you're attached to base stations or access nodes that consume about 1 kilowatt. But when they start to consume 10 watts, and there's lots of them, then all of a sudden solar panels and things like that become a real practical alternative and really can start to shape our industry in terms of the way we use it to make ourselves more efficient, as well as leverage other technologies to improve the overall cost efficiency of our network. So while we come together as an industry like this to think about some of the biggest problems facing us, I want to also encourage you to take a step back and think about some of the biggest problems that will be facing us over the next 5 years or decade. And that, of course, is energy and energy efficiency. And I welcome all of you to come over to the booth, come take a look at GreenTouch, and actually come join us in this effort. Everyone can play a part. Everyone has a contribution to make. And all of these contributions can sum up towards greatness. Thank you very much for your time.